Joining us now, and as everybody is dealing with the impacts of COVID professionally and personally, athletic directors right now, wow, what a position to be in. The athletic director at San Diego State is Wicker. He's joining us on this Monday afternoon. JD, Darren, thank you very much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Happy to be on and hope all is well with Darren Smith and Marty and Jim and everybody else.
We appreciate that. I know that at least I want to start by asking one relatively good piece of news, JD, and that would be about a timeline we heard of in Mission Valley. Sounds like less than a month's time. Are we serious? Like in less than a month's time, we might see a fence up around the Mission Valley location around Sdsu Stadium?
Yeah, we're ready to go as soon as we get the keys. The contractor is ready to get started. We've got all the pieces in place. We just need the keys, and we will begin construction.
How exciting is that, even given the circumstances here and some of the stuff that we're about to talk about, which who knows, but how exciting is that just to think about after this long process here that you guys will start putting up fencing here in less than a month's time, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long 3.5-year process to get where we are, and it is exciting to think about things on the horizon and a stadium in fall of 2022 that will open. And, hopefully by that time we're through all of the fog of COVID-19 that we're dealing with right now. And we're going to open up a phenomenal building that's going to be great for the entire community, and it's really going to be good for San Diego State football.
Well, JD, obviously, the governor today had further announcements about different types of industries and operations that had to take a temporary pause. Some of this we've already heard of throughout the afternoon. I wonder, how are you feeling right now? I mean, as we're just chatting on this Monday, how are you feeling about college athletics in the fall?
Obviously things have changed a lot in the last couple weeks. 4 weeks ago, probably much more positive about the opportunity to play this fall. Obviously, the numbers are not trending in a good direction. We're going to, continue planning for the process of playing in the fall. And in the next couple of weeks, we'll obviously have to make some decisions because, we're getting to that point where it's a go, no-go just based on all the things you need to do to get ready for a season.
And when you say that, would you be able to explain to us, how the protocols work? Because, I think, and as I've said last week on the radio, one of the things I think that adds to confusion, JD, is you get a lot of sports reporters, people who are in sports media, who might be very, very well sourced inside of sports, but these decisions are coming from university chancellors and school presidents, et cetera. So how are these decisions being made here moving forward with specific regard to the future of sports, the immediate future of sports?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts at the very top, and that's going to be the governor of California is going to weigh in on, what we're going to do. It comes down to the specific county that you're in. It's also going to be what, your president wants to do, your board of trustees, especially as you start talking about repopulation protocols. But then once you get into competitive season, there's going to be a testing protocol that's required for any in-season sport. And that'll be something that, we'll have to talk to our opponents. Are you going to follow this, minimum testing guideline? And if they're not going to, follow that, then that becomes a problem with us potentially playing that game. Pieces like that. So, and, again, we're not going to rush to a decision today when, we can wait a couple of weeks to make a more informed decision.
JD Wicker joining us. So, when you say it that way, when you say we're not going to rush to any sort of decisions, last week the Big Ten did make a decision. It was followed Friday by a decision out of the Pac-12. What was your thought and what's your reaction specifically on the Pac-12 since that impacts you? UCLA was scheduled to come down on September 19th and play at Sdsu Stadium. What were your thoughts when you saw what was happening in different parts of the country with different leagues?
Well, we had heard rumblings that the Pac-12 was probably headed that way. The Big Ten deciding when they did, that was a surprise. That was a surprise to everyone. No one knew they were going to announce that when they did. And again, we kind of heard the Pac-12 was headed that way. I understand, in one of the conversations that, someone else shared with me that they had with a Pac-10 representative is they wanted to be able to control all of the testing protocols and all of the different pieces that would go into being able to compete. And knowing that, they have non-conference competition across, the gamut of all the different conferences, it just didn't make sense to piecemeal that and to do it. So it's disappointing because I think our testing protocol would have probably been the same as UCLA's. But we'll continue to work with UCLA on what that looks like. I mean, if fall gets delayed to spring, there might be an opportunity to play that game then, or, we bump it out into future years. We've already got at least one home and home with UCLA in the future. So we'll have that conversation with Martin Jarman, the new AD there, and we'll figure something out. I'm not overly concerned with that. I am disappointed. I was really disappointed because it would have been a huge crowd. So knowing that it was shrunk down, it probably doesn't hurt as bad as it would have.
J.D. Wicker is the athletic director at San Diego State, and you said if fall gets delayed, is there any sense, J.D., not a percentage unless you feel comfortable doing that sort of stuff, which I'm guessing you do not, but that word, like if fall gets delayed, how much is the conversation about what to do with fall sports, not just football, obviously men's and women's soccer and volleyball, there's a lot that goes into that. How much of the conversations now about what to do with all of the fall sports, not just reacting to what's going on out of the Pac-12 or the Big Ten?
Obviously there's a lot more discussion about it just based on all of the numbers across the country. I didn't realize today, somebody told me New Mexico had basically canceled all fall sports for their high schools. You saw the superintendent of the Dallas school district say he didn't think they'd play football this fall. And Texas canceling fall football or football is akin to the NFL canceling football, if you really think about it. So the Patriot League, the Ivy League canceling all their fall sports. So there's obviously a lot more discussion about it. Again, we're going to make the appropriate decision at the appropriate time. And we know that we have a little while longer on, do we delay the start? Do we postpone completely? Those are decisions that are going to be made in, the next 3 to 4 weeks.
J.D. Wicker, it's funny, I think that some of the reporters, and we've talked about Chris Fowler today, who for many people is the face of college football on Saturday nights and forever doing College Game Day. Paul Feinbaum, if you're in the South, that they're using terms like inevitable and fatalism, et cetera. And, again, I swear, JD, I'm not trying to get you to break here and tell us something, but I wonder if you sort of feel like some of the things that are being discussed are inevitable for the Mountain West or for San Diego State University or for college football and college athletics as a whole.
Again, it's obviously all things are on the table right now. And like I said earlier, I'm less optimistic than I was 3 or 4 weeks ago. But again, it's one of those, is it delaying until the end of September, which basically the Big Ten has now done, going to an 8 or 9 game schedule. The SEC, the Big 12 and the ACC have basically said they're going to wait till the end of July to figure out what they're doing. I think anybody would feel that way just based on the news across the country. Everybody, different states are shattering records for a number of positive tests. I look at it more hospitalizations and ICUs being impacted. That's a bigger issue. How's your health community handling all of that? So we'll just keep watching what's happening nationally. We'll keep discussing as athletic directors amongst the Mountain West Conference, Commissioner Thompson, having regular conversations with commissioners across the country, and we'll see what happens.
It's interesting because what makes college sports so unique, and one of the things that I really love about college sports is that you get these different conferences, which is a totally different structure than, let's say, the NBA. We were talking about the NBA earlier today, that all the NBA teams, 30 of them, they go into a bubble. United Soccer League, Major League Baseball, right? Like there's a governing body, there's a commissioner. But at a time like this, JD, what is it like seeing that different conferences, different leagues make different decisions? I mean, I would think that that's would it be better if there was one person speaking on behalf of the entire sport, or do you think that this system right now, given the circumstances that, the Big Ten out of the Midwest, the SEC perhaps out of the South, Pac-12, you all as the Mountain West Conference, how hard is it just to sort of see this thing operating on different schedules and with different decisions?
Well, I mean, that is one of the challenges, and I was having this discussion with our president's chief of staff the other day. Being a membership organization of, if you think about all three divisions, over 1,000 institutions at the NCAA, at the Division I level, there's 360 different some odd institutions. So getting everybody to come together and have the same idea of how you want to move forward. I mean, that's been something that's been discussed as you think about NIL, cost of attendance, all these other pieces. It's really hard to get that group together when there's not a commissioner that is, kind of helping lead that or dictate that. It's very hard for President Emmer to do something like that. So, and you've got the conferences, and NCAA football is unique in that, the structure of NCAA football is not necessarily inside the NCAA like a basketball is, where the basketball tournament and all that are controlled by the NCAA. The college football playoff controls the playoff system, and the conferences control the TV contracts and those types of things. So it's a very unique system. It does make it difficult when different people have different agendas to all come together. So yeah, that's definitely been a challenge. I mean, you saw it with the Big Ten. None of the other Power 5 commissioners had any idea the Big Ten was going to make that announcement last week.
Yeah, I mean, and they're not shy about talking about how blindsided they felt by the Big Ten. I mean, do you have any opinion? Like, why, in your opinion, would something like that happen? I know you can't speak for them, but man, I mean, is it just going to be like that, where everybody's going to sort of unilaterally just make their own announcements as they see fit?
I think you may see some collaboration between the SEC and the ACC, because they have, last week of the college football season, you have 4 ACC-SEC matchups that are very important interstate rivalry games. But beyond that, I don't know that you'll see a lot of collaboration there, and that's just kind of how it is, and it is frustrating. Your listeners who've been in San Diego a while, Bob Mooseberger, who used to be a senior associate here and is now the athletic director at Bowling Green, basically put out a statement after the Big Ten did that and basically said, why can't we all work together for the good of everybody? But it's kind of how it is today. I'd love to see it change.
Did you get a heads up about the Pac-12, or did you have to read that or hear that on Extra 1360, or how did you find out that in fact you guys were impacted by that league's decisions?
Again, I think, as I said earlier, we'd heard rumblings that it was going to happen, and then I had a conversation with Martin Jarman, the AD at UCLA, probably 20 minutes before anything leaked or the formal announcement was made. But again, it was just confirming something that we pretty much already knew was done.
And last thing for you, JD, would just be what sort of timeline are you all working on? We know that last time we chatted, there was a schedule for when camp was going to begin. I don't know that the pause button has been pushed in any regard, but what sort of timetable are you guys at San Diego State working on as it relates to college football and other fall sports?
Well, we've got football back in town. We're continuing to do workouts outside, early morning before it gets too hot. Kids are happy to be back. We're happy to have them back. It allows us to, we're paying for their housing. We're paying to feed them. They have ready access to, doctors and our athletic trainers. So we feel like we've got them in the best position to be successful and to stay healthy. They're happy to be around their teammates again. So we're working through that voluntary period. We get to, the first mandated period, I believe is July 13th or 14th, that we're allowed to start doing a little more with our other sports. Men's soccer, we're actually backing them up a little bit because they play in the Pac-12, so their season probably won't start to mid to late September now. So we're kind of backing them up to bring them in. Women's soccer and volleyball starting to come in as their seasons would start mid-August if we start on time. So it's nice to see some kids back and getting some workouts in, and they're happy to be back.
JD Wicker, we appreciate it. Thank you again. I know some of this, I can only imagine the frustration of trying to piece this all together. And it ain't easy. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Best of luck to you guys, and we hope this all works out for the best.
All right, Darren, I appreciate the time, and you and Marty and Jim stay healthy, and I'll look forward to talking again soon.